Back in 2012, Apple discontinued its monstrous 17-inch MacBook Pro, and since then, the trend for laptops has gone in the powerful but portable direction. In 2019, unless you're looking to buy a massive gaming rig, there aren't a lot of great 17-inch laptops out there that fit this theme, with the exception of the 17-inch LG Gram. This laptop has spurred us to go back and revisit the 17-inch MacBook Pro and see whether it's feasible for Apple to introduce a larger size notebook like LG did with its 17-inch Gram. Before we get started, please keep in mind this isn't a direct comparison between the two laptops. We won't be comparing performance and specs because that's just not relevant since these laptops were released roughly 8 years apart. What we can't compare is what it's like to use a bigger laptop like the LG Gram and see where Apple can emulate some of these features for its rumored larger laptop. Speaking of, earlier this year, rumors suggested that Apple is working on a MacBook Pro that could be up to 16.5 inches, and while it's not quite 17 inches, it's a full 1.5 inches bigger than its current 15-inch laptop. The obvious way to achieve a larger MacBook Pro size is to reduce the bezels around the display. With the 17-inch MacBook Pro, there's a thick bezel around the top and sides of the device. Compared to the current 15-inch MacBook Pro, the weight and size of the massive 17-inch machine comes from its body rather than its display, and the footprint can be reduced, though it will come at the cost of ports. Now, this isn't a big deal considering that most of these ports are unnecessary for a modern machine. So for example, there's a FireWire port, a 3.5mm in and out jack, and an Ethernet port, although I can still make a case for that last one. On this 17-inch MacBook Pro, there was also an express card /34 slot, which I completely forgot was a thing. And on the other side, there's a long forgotten 8x slot loading super drive, unnecessary since most people don't use CDs and DVDs anymore. On current Macs, this slot no longer exists and hasn't been included for years now. In modern MacBook Pro machines, all of these slots have been essentially removed except for that 3.5mm headphone jack and replaced with a 4 USB-C Thunderbolt 3 setup. For me personally, I'd like to see those Thunderbolt 3 ports alongside a few USB Type-A ports. I fully believe that USB-C is the future, and so does Apple, but I don't believe that USB Type-A is going away anytime soon. There are far too many devices that still require a USB Type-A connection, some that I use on a daily basis, and would like at least one port like this on a larger MacBook Pro. The LG Gram has a pretty good selection of ports available, like 3 USB Type-A's, a 3.5mm headphone jack, a micro SD card slot, and a USB-C port, and there's even an HDMI port too. I'm not saying that Apple needs to add that many additional connections, but 4 USB-Cs, 2 Type-A's, and an SD card slot would be perfect. The LG Gram is significantly wider than the 15-inch MacBook Pros, but a little bit smaller than the older 17-inch model. The main difference, well, that's obvious, the weight. The LG Gram, as its name implies, is very light. It's technically a little under 3 pounds, but when you pick up a device with this footprint and it's this light, it's a really shocking experience. Following that up by picking up the 17-inch MacBook Pro, and well, you probably know where this is headed. The 17-inch MacBook Pro weighs a monstrous 6 pounds. When you open up both laptops, you'll also notice another shocking difference, and that's the amount of wasted space Apple has alongside the keyboard and trackpad in its 17-inch machine. LG's machine is space efficient. For example, there's a nicely laid out full-size keyboard with a number pad, which is rare to see, but LG manages to cram this in alongside a fairly large trackpad, and there's still a lot of room for speakers to flank both sides of the keyboard like on the MacBook Pro. With the 17-inch model, the speaker grills are comically big, and while they sound and function much better than the LG speakers, which are located on the bottom and get muffled easily when they're on your lap, it seems a bit unnecessary. I'd imagine a 2019 version of this would look more in line with what LG did and then bring over the 15-inch style MacBook speakers. As far as displays go, this 2011 MacBook Pro actually looks really nice with a 1920 by 1200 panel, but 8 years of display technology brings you an obvious improvement with the Gram's 2560 by 1600 IPS panel. I will say, having a display this large on a laptop has been great. At one point, I considered going from my 15-inch MacBook to a 13-inch for the power and portability, but ultimately I could not ditch my larger display. After using the 17-inch LG Gram, my desire for an even larger MacBook Pro has grown exponentially, and I really hope the rumored 16.5-inch laptop can borrow some of the design elements that LG took with the Gram. My guess is that it's probably going to be a 15-inch MacBook Pro body with smaller bezels to accommodate the larger display. And while that still sounds appealing to me, I would love a bit of a different design that's more in line with the LG Gram. So let us know your thoughts on a potential 17-inch MacBook Pro and some of the features or design elements that you would like to see in the comment section down below. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.